let's explore how to create a 9-grid chart label. We have 9 boxes here, or grids, and we're going to make sure that they are all identified with a specific label. So let's start to look how to create the 9-box grid chart. First of all, I have here the border template, which you can find here on this specific link, chartjs3.com, getting started. And once you're on this link, and you can find this link in the description box, scroll down and copy this chunk of code, which is the border template. Next, if you want the end result of this video and many of my other videos, the source code, check out my Patreon here, this link here. Alright, first what I want to do is convert this into a scatter chart, because basically the structure of the type is a scatter chart. So if I save this, refresh, there we are. Now what I want to do is, because we don't have any data, I just want to put in here a sample data for now, so we can see that it works. So let's say here 10, and for the y value we'll say here 10 as well. Save this, refresh, and now you can see we have the coordinates. So what I want to do next is I want to change this here. I want to go from 0 all the way to 100, and here from 0 all the way to 100. But before I even do that, I want to have a square shape. So let's scroll down here in the options, go to enter. I'm going to say here the aspect ratio that we want to change. And we say here it will be 1:1, meaning the width and height will be 1:1, and now we have a nice square. Alright, let's start to work on the y-axis first and change this value from 0 to 100. And the reason why, it is very easy later on then to make the lines, because it will be on 33.3 and then the other one will be on 66.6. So let's scroll down here to the y scale, and I can remove this. What I can say here is say min value will be 0, max value will be 100. Save this, refresh, and as you can see here now we get this structure that looks far more better. Alright, what I want to do of course here is not only to have these lines. This is too many lines, and what I want to have is only a line here on 33.3 and on 66.6 somewhere here. I want to have this line. So how do I do this? Well, what I'm going to say here is the after tick to label conversion, which is a callback functionality built into chart.js. So what this truly does is it will convert whatever the labels are, and let's put in here ctx, and then what I do here is say console.log ctx. Save this, refresh, open up the developer tab, and you can see here now we get all of these information, and this ticks here is the information of the y scale. What I want to do is I want to empty this array, because this ticks should not appear anymore. I want to create my new own ticks. So what I'm going to do here is very simple. I'm going to say here ctx.ticks equals blank array. If I save this, refresh, now the value is still there, but the ticks has been removed. What I want to do now is control my own ticks, and I want to tick basically here and here. So there's only 2 ticks. I don't want to work on the 0 line here, because that's not necessary, because we have a border by default on here, and later on that will become very important. So what I'm going to say here, ctx.ticks.push, because what I want to do is I want to push now my own array value, and what I want is, and I'm getting ahead of myself, so I want to just save this first, refresh, open up the developer tab for the ticks to show you the structure of it before I do this. You can see here we have a label and a value. Basically the value is the exact number, and the label is the string representing that item. So what I'm going to do here is just push this, and then what I'm going to push here is first of all the value, which I will say will be 33.3, comma the label with the string text. So for now I just will leave this for blank, we don't need anything in here, so I'll just have it like that. And then if I do here comma, we're going to put another one here, oh sorry, that will be semicolon. So now we have that one, and here of course same 66.6 or 6, and this one like that to be even more exact. There we are. So now we have these 2 lines here, no text represented here, because we don't need that in there. Later on we'll put it in the grids itself. So now I have this here. What I want to do next is put here a comma. And if you look very carefully here, we have these tick marks. I want to remove the tick marks because they have no value in this case. So what I'm going to say here, in the grid object of the scale, I'm going to say draw ticks, and then we're going to say here false. Save this, refresh, and now we remove the tick marks. So now we've done that. Next, what I want to do is I want to make this border, or not even on this one, because this is on the Y scale, so everything, or sorry, this should be this one. The Y scale, I want to make this one thicker. So that will be important. There is right now, if you look very carefully, there are two lines behind it. Because there's the X scale has the line of the tick mark, or of the ticks. But that will be later on, I will remove that one. So what I'm going to do here, comma, I'm first going to make a tick border. I say border, and this border will be width of 2 pixels. If I save this, and I think I forgot a comma here or something like that. A column. Make sure you have a column there. There we are. So now it's thicker. Alright. But what I want to do is, the border will be fine, but I want these grid lines that are connected to the Y scale have a dashed structure. So what I'm going to do here, I want to say this will be a dash 6, 6, meaning 6 pixels solid and then 6 pixels white space. And it will create this pattern. If I refresh here, you can see here now this works nicely. Alright, so now we have done this. What I want to do is I want to do it as well here for the X scale. So what I'm going to do here, oh, before I even do that, I should have here a title indicating the category. In this case, I'll just say here potential, but you could do anything depending on what type of 9-box grid chart you're making. So what I'm going to say here, title for the Y scale, I'll say display true, because I want to show something, and next I want to say here the text, and the text will be potential, for example. Save this, refresh, there we are. Now I want exactly the same what I just did, but then for the X scale. So I'm just going to copy all of this. For the X here, make sure there's a comma between, and then we paste this all in here. So once I did this, save, refresh, it duplicates everything, and you can see here now both sides, solid line here, and this is a dotted line. Beautiful. So we have here the score here, and I guess we're good to go. I'll just change this and say impact, for example, for the X scale. So in the X scale, we have a different title. Impact, there we are. So now you can measure that if someone would score a 10 here, or 0 on the scale of the Y, and X amount here on the X, it will move in the right direction. So what I'm going to do now is, I'm going to give these grids a proper name, because now we need to give it meaning. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to scroll down here, create a plugin, and let's make sure we have it correctly. So I'm going to select here the option, so we can see here the closing. Alright, so then what I want to do here is, just here above, we're going to say plugins, bracket, and then I'm going to say here the term. So what we can do here is, let's say 9 box or 9 grid labels. So now we have here the 9 grid labels name for this plugin, and it's an array because you could have more than one plugin. We have to now create this constant. So I'm going to say this constant here, and maybe we can just say here nicely the plugin block constant, this equals, and then we say here ID 9 grid labels, comma, and then we're going to say when would we like to draw this. In this case, I want to draw this before we draw these data points, because we want to make sure that these are on top and not the text labels of the grid will be overlapping those. So we want to make sure that that doesn't block any view. So I'm going to say here, before the data sets, we will draw these labels. So then I'm going to say here column. Then we have here, of course, the double parentheses. And then I'm going to say here chart, arcs, and plugins. And then I'm going to say here, because this is a callback functionality, so we have this arrow function expression. And then in here, we're going to work, and the first thing what I want to do is an object destructuring. If you're not familiar with object destructuring, make sure you check out my video Understanding Chart.js Object Destructuring, which you can find in the description box. So I'm going to say a constant equals chart. And then what I'm going to do here is I want to say here ctx, because I need to draw on the canvas. I will be needing the chart area, but probably not everything. But let's say here we get the top, the bottom, the left, and the right. I think that should be more than sufficient. Next I want to have is the scales. I'm going to say X and Y. So once I have this, we can now start to draw our items. So to make this very simple, I'm going to start with drawing a basic text. And after that, we're going to fix that. First of all, I'm going to say save CTX. And then what I want to do here is to define the fonts or the font type, family, and if it's bold or not. So we're going to say ctx.font equals, and this is a string value, bold 12 pixels, and then sans serif as font family, which is the default font family of chart.js. Next, what I want to do is I want to use the color. So I'm going to say ctx.fill-style for the text color, and let's make this gray or RGB BA, I guess we can say RGB 102, 102, 102. And then once we have this, I guess we're here good to go to put in a text. So I'm going to say ctx.fill text, and then in here we have 3 items we need to put in: the text, we have the x coordinate, and we have finally the y coordinate. So for example, in this case, I want to be here between these two here. I want to put it here in the center. So that would basically mean I need to divide 33.3 by 2, and then I will be probably in the center here. So what I'm going to do is, well, I have these values already, but let's start with the starting point by just putting in here a 10 pixel by 10 pixel. Let's confirm if we have a working model. So let's save this, refresh. Alright, so apparently we don't have a working model. And I guess I suspect where it is. If I scroll down here, I assume that I am just outside of range here. Probably I need to be just one more down. Save that, refresh. Alright, that's it. So make sure you're after the options. Yes, there you are. Make sure you're after the options. Apparently I was just between the options, and that is not the way it should be for a custom plugin, or at least to initialize the custom plugin. So now we have that working here. I want to move this down here, but I want to give it a proper name. To make it very easy, I will say this will be row 1, row 2, and row 3, and this will be column A, column B, column C. So I will say A1, and then here A2, and then A3, basically, etc., etc. So it's easy for you to follow along. So I'm going to scroll up, and I'm going to say here, how do we get this first? Let's say here we have this A1, and later on I'm going to fine tune it with a for each loop. So don't worry about that. So first of all, I want to figure out how do I get to this point here. Well, we have here the scale, so this will help us a lot. So we're going to say x.get pixel for the value, and the value that I want is basically, if you do 33, it will be here on top. You could go a little bit down by saying maybe minus X amount of pixels, but I want to be just here down in the center. So that is 33.3 divided by 2. If you do that, I have already made a note out of it. It's 16.65. So then I want to do exactly the same logic here, but then on the Y scale. I'm going to save that, refresh, and now you can see here it looks almost in the center, but if you look very carefully, you might see it's not exactly. And the reason why is of text alignment. So let's fix the text alignment of this. I'm going to go here up. I'm going to say ctx.text align, and we just say equal center, because by default it is set on left, pushing the text to the right. We do this, I think we're now almost in the center, and I will accept this position. Alright, so now we have this here. The next thing I want to do up for each of them, but you can see here we have all these values, and we cannot hard code them. And of course we have them, if you go up here, we need to calculate plus 33.3 and etc, etc. I have all these numbers, so you don't have to calculate them yourself. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create here a object with the 9 labels. So I'm going to give this a constant and say this will be 9 labels equals. And then in here, this object will have labels, which is an array. And in this array, we have multiple data points. So let's say here, first of all, is the name, and the name will be A1, A2, etc., etc. Then we have here the x coordinates, and the x coordinate right now is this. And then we have also the y coordinate, which is exactly the same in this case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just duplicate this for now. And then what I want to do is, because if I go up, I don't have to change the x coordinates, because the x coordinates are the one that are connecting from left to right. So we're here exactly in the center. All I have to do is push it up. So what I need to do here, I need to change the y coordinates. And to do that, you have to just add up basically 33.3. So I already have these numbers, so you don't have to calculate them. That's 49.95. And this one here will be here up. That's from 49.95 plus 33.3, and that is 83.25. So if I save this, now I have here A2 and A3. I can basically copy maybe this all. Well, we can copy them. Make sure we have commas on each. And copy them again. And then here I'm going to say this will be B for Bravo, because that will be the center column. And then we have here C for Charlie for the end column. Of course, here we will have then again the changing numbers. This one has to be pushed more to the right, which is in the center here. And what we can do here is just basically this position here, because both of them is from 0 to 100, here 0 to 100. If that is not the case, we need to calculate then what would be the exact center. So in my case, it's quite simple. So I'm going to put this in there and just put them on the same, and exactly the same for this here. Paste this in there, in here, and in here. If I save this, of course we're not done, because I still need to make the for each loop. So now I'm going to scroll down and say, how can we do a for each loop here? Because this here is the default. I don't want to touch this. This is all fine. We don't have to loop this all over, because all of the text will be the same, unless you want to have a different color or something like that. You could add up here, for example, but that's out of the scope of this video. So what I want to do here is now create a for loop, or for each loop, with the 9 labels. So I say here 9 labels. Go down here, and there's a dot labels. There's a here dot for each. Basically, the shorthand will be now, let's give it the name label, comma index. And I need the index here so we can get these items, or maybe not even necessary. So we'll see about that. Then I say here function arrow expression, do this, and then what I want to do is I want to cut out this, put it in here. And now if I change this label to here, we will get this. And then what I want to do here is from the label, I need to go to the name. So that will be dot name, and I realize we don't even need this index here, so that will be even nicer. Then I want to change this. Let's say here dot x, because we'll get then the x label value, and then here the y label value. Save this, refresh, and there we are. Now we have here A, B, C, and etc., etc. Everything in the right proportion and order. I could even reduce the code on here. Just keep it dry like that. Alright, so if I save this again, refresh, we have a working model. Let's put in something new in here. Another one. Put a comma, and we say here this one will be, well, 66 by 90. And I don't know where it will point up. There we are. It goes in here very nicely. And that's it.